Okay, I got this box elder blank. It's dried. Picked it up on our wood club. We do a little raffle every week. You buy some tickets that help support the club. Funny shape, but it is dry. So I'm going to try to cut it off here and make a blank out of it so you can try to get a live edge. The bark seems pretty tight on here, and I can't really see anything spectacular about the wood. So my goal is going to be to keep it kind of flat on the bark side and cut off a nice spot here that I can use for to anchor it on the lathe, and then maybe have a little spindle blank out of it. A little burl figure and some chatoyancy in that. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but there's some figure in there. And ended up being some very pretty wood. Now I'll have to figure out if it's worth turning that into two things or going and just shaping the bowl in a big V based on the waste we have on this side. There's always those decisions you have to make when you're milling up your lumber. Is, you know, the minute you cut something, you can't grow it back. But we can see where the area is here. I might get two nice smaller bowls out of it and another spindle blank if I go ahead and mill it down the middle like this. So I think I'm going to make the decision to go for two smaller pieces rather than one large one. A couple reasons for that. One is I like to turn, so the more blanks I have to turn, the better. But also, it seems that in most of the shows out by us, small stuff sells faster. It's easier to move. It's easier to sell. It's cheaper to ship if someone buys something online. So it's a kind of a strategic thing. If you're going to turn something that's 5-6 inches, chances of it selling quickly are much higher than if I'm turning a 14, 16, or 18-inch bowl. And I can get a lot more out of one blank by turning some smaller stuff. So let's see if we just can mill this up into two nice blanks and some spindles. We've got some interesting spalt figure in here. All those black lines are spalt. That chatoyancy doesn't come all the way through to this side. There's some shimmer, but not quite the same. And it looks like there was maybe a little burl starting in here. So it'll be interesting to see once we get that squared up. Be a tool handle, spatula, a lot of options to make something like that. Now I've already kept we'll look at it for the best blank size we can get. Each of these dip down on the sides. So we know that this is our width. So if I cut across here, I'm going to get a square, which is what we want for our you can see we got a little bit of funky wood here. It's all end grain and our side grain. So we're going to have some interesting spalt there. That bark has got a lot of goo in there. We might be able to seal that up first with some CA before we start to turn. But we're going to have a nice, pretty round live edge in the middle of it. On this one, we have a couple of options. This big bark inclusion here, which could end up being pretty, and an offset, something offset, or we can go ahead and lose it by making another smaller square. So that smaller square, you can't see from this side, we'll do it from, well, let's see. So it's going to come in right about here. So we're still going to end up losing something on that end. So we might want to try to keep that as an interesting feature, or this could be turned like a vessel blank. A lot of this wood in here. I think that I'm going to go for the bowl blank out of this one. And, or I think, you know, I'm looking at this way. There might be a prettier vase in that, a little pot. It's a tough one. And you know what? I don't have to make a decision right this minute because that's not going to go in the lathe today. So I think I can, it's a nice dry blank. It's a nice dry blank. I can put that up for a while until I think of something. This one though, it's ready to get up on the lathe. Now, whenever we're dealing with cutting up the offcuts into spindle blanks, I try to look at, you know, you don't want the bark obviously in the spindle. So we see where the bark comes in, what's the thickest section we can actually get from the board. So we could make a standard board out of this, make some blanks. This could end up being something for finials, pen blanks, bottle openers, things like that. You just, you know, it's nothing worth wasting. Christmas ornaments, but try to get a nice flat edge to give me an idea of what we have to deal with, if there's going to be any interesting figures, something in there to see. And I'm going to go ahead and try to rip the bark off of this first, and then we'll know what we have left to deal with. Still have some bark inclusion. We have a little bit of the red fungus that box elder's famous for. This piece here doesn't really even have anything left in it that we can use for spindles or anything like that. It looks like pretty much bark and some interesting inclusions. We have this one knot that's got some pretty flame in it that might end up being something interesting. Bark though comes quite a bit in, so we're still probably want to peel that back till we don't have any bark left. Bark's actually in there pretty loosely, so it gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. But you see we have a little bit of bird's eye in there. That color doesn't go all the way through our knot. Now a little piece of veneer like this, I could run through the sander and I might end up making a small insert or something like that later. But I like to know where the garbage is here. That's going to cause me trouble. So there's really only pieces here that I could use for inlay work. So I'll probably play with that later, this side of the scrap box, until I'm ready to do something different. Now over here, we still have a little bit of the punky stuff here. But if we're making a spindle blank and it's going to be round over here, we shouldn't have a big issue. It's a little punky, but again, that knot and that little bit of burl in there could end up making a pretty tool handle. So my inclination with something like this would be to go ahead and whack it down to the thickness I'm looking at on this other side. So that's going to be a little bit, leave us with a couple of corners, but we're going to knock those off anyway when we make something round, right? Now we can square that up on the nicer side, and we'll have a tool handle blank out of that, and I think that would be the way to go. Yes, we cut it this way, Now to keep it square, we're going to go that direction. So, lots of nice figure. Something we could get right up on the lathe and mount. I think probably be a beautiful tool handle, a couple of handles for a saw. And then I've got some thin stuff here that I can use later for inlays, a finial, even a real fine finial, decorations when I'm doing Christmas ornaments, things like that. So nothing goes to waste if you take your time going through it, and you end up with, you know, from that one block of box elder, I've got 2 bowl blanks and a pretty decent spindle blank and 1 piece of figured wood that I can use later for an insert or some sort of inlay work. So making bow ties out of these interesting parts to inlay into wood is beautiful, really adds some character to it. Especially if you can capture that knot in one of the bows. You can end up with a really pretty inlay like that.